Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, where positive parenting meets well-being. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Positively Healthy Mom. I'm your host, Laura Olinger, teen and parent well-being coach, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Carrie Lingenfelter, who is also a podcast host. Her podcast is Heart to Heart Parents Podcast, and she is coming to us from the Boulder, Colorado area. So, Keri, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to connect with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share. And I know the first thing I wanted to bring up is kind of your personal journey of, you were an educator and a speech therapist and then became a mom. And you mentioned having feelings of anxiety with that. So tell us like where that was coming from and how you handled that.
Yeah, 100%. Anxiety. Yes, that was a piece of the puzzle. So I was a speech therapist. I worked with birth to 3-year-olds. So I would go into houses and work with the families. And it's really interesting because as I was working in families, I would notice so often the kids would not be talking. That's usually what I was there for.
Mm,
And I would be trying to help the parents connect with the kids. And as I was there, I would notice this pattern in so many families. It was the parents really, really wanting the kids to speak.
mhm,
And I would really work with the parents to help them understand the stress that they were feeling and then
mhm.
putting onto their children, like, speak now. I really need you to speak. I really
Yeah.
need you to answer me. And so helping the parents to just lessen that pressure that they were feeling for themselves and then for their kids. So that was really interesting. And I reflect back on that as a mom now because
Mhm.
as I became a parent, I definitely thought, I've got this, husband. You can sit in the back seat. I'm a child specialist. Like, I know everything that's coming. And then, as soon as they laid my son, who is now turning 10, on my chest, my world was rocked. And he looked into my eyes with these bright blue eyes, which I did not know was coming because we both have hazel. And I was like, what do I know? I do not know anything. And my husband and I, we quickly tried to dive into this box of parenting perfection that we
Mm,
thought we had to do. We tried to follow all the rules. We tried to get on the sleep schedules. We read all the books. I think my scariest one for me was What to Expect When Expecting. It just gave me all
mhm,
this list of everything that could go wrong, which just got me into my mind more and more and more. So
mm,
as my son came to earth or came to be here, he was so sensitive. And things like cloth diapers that I thought I had to have to be the perfect crunchy mom in the area I live, um, he would wake up every hour because every time he would go to the restroom, he would feel it in the cloth diaper. So my husband and I had to start learning how to follow our child, how to connect with our own selves to see how we could parent our son the best. And he would tell us when he needed to sleep. He would tell us when he needed to eat. He didn't need the 800 sleep gadgets. We could connect with him and start to follow our own hearts in our journey of parenting. So that was really something we learned right at the start. But because we are humans, we tend to go back to that fear-based feeling, right? We
yeah.
want our children to grow up to be the best versions of themselves. And so, for a former recovering perfectionist, it's having those routines and having those things that you can turn to in your everyday life, having those moments, that mind body heart connection of understanding when we're stressed out, understanding when we're getting anxious, understanding when our emotions are coming up towards our kids that are maybe fear based. So as I went on this journey, and I'm still on this journey because my kids are 7 and 10, we're still
Mhm.
and learning together,
Yeah.
having that root of what I can come back to. So that led me to start Heart to Heart Parents 15 months ago. And it's been really cool because it's really evolved. I feel like it was very mindful and conscious parenting based. And I've just been along the journey of, I don't know if you've heard of the podcast Telepathy Tapes. It's been really interesting. It's like this new podcast that was released, and it's geared toward parents, or it's geared toward everyone, but it's helping
Mhm.
parents, helping to share the story of parents raising neurodiverse kiddos. So
Mm.
So it's been really cool as I have been sharing my journey with everyone and talking about tools and things that work in our house. Up comes telepathy tapes, which also is very aligned in what I've been finding with my kids, with the mindfulness tools for myself and for my kids and all these pieces. So I'm not
Mhm.
sure why I mentioned that, but it's been fun to see other things, other projects coming to be that are
Yeah.
having this amazing following now. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of parents out there learning how to see the gifts in our kids.
Yeah, yeah, and so I like how you brought up the mind body part because that's how I know, like, I can feel it in my body when I start to it's almost a feeling of wanting to control the outcome, where we have something in our mind of how we want it to go, like we have an image or a vision, and so I'm not a recovering perfectionist. I was never a perfectionist. I've always been a disaster. I'm very I'm very okay with chaos and disasters. I have 4 kids and a dog, and there's a lot of disasters, right? It's just kind of like managing the chaos, and I really do thrive in that. But when I find myself going into the mode that I think that you're describing is, here's my example. Last night at dinner, we all sat down together and everyone was just like a little tired. And I always have a vision in my head that I want dinner to be like a fun time and like a connecting time. It doesn't have to be fun, but just like connected. And because when I grew up, and hopefully my mom and dad aren't listening to this particular episode. However, dinner for me, like, doesn't have, like, positive memories on it. It just, it felt like a serious stressful time, and so that's why I created this vision in my head of, like, I want my dinner to be relaxing for my kids. I want it to be a connecting time, and I could tell, like, sometimes when I'm just, like, forcing it a little bit too much, like, when I'm asking the questions and, they're like, they feel like they're getting interviewed or kinda, focused on a little bit too much, and so that's when I realized, like, I can feel it, and so what I'll do is I just kind of, like, take that deep breath and I kind of just sit back and I'm like, why am I trying to control the situation? Why don't I just let it organically unfold? Because we don't always all talk to each other. Sometimes my sons just have their conversation, my daughters have their conversation. I kind of jump in here or there. It doesn't have to be this formula that I have it created in my mind where we're all talking right together. And so, like, what is your thought about that? Like, how do you reflect on that in your own experience?
That comes back so much to an inner child piece, I think, because in that situation, you're picturing an outcome that you're wanting to have. And then also, maybe last night you were understanding, like, I don't need to be in control of it, right? I don't have to have control, excuse me, of what this moment is going to look like.
Mhm.
I can live in the moment. I can let it happen organically. It doesn't have to look like the scenario that I'm thinking of. So I think for me, I would reflect back on what is it in me that is needing control of this situation?
Yeah.
What is it in me? Is my heart still going to be filled if I'm seeing a human connection here? What is it that I'm looking for in that scenario? Am I looking for everybody's connecting together? Am I looking for um, where we all have there's some people that have like a routine that they do every night. So they say, I think it's like the rose and the thorn. So what was the
Oh, yeah.
rose of your day?
We
What was
used
the
to do
thorn
that,
of your
yes.
day?
Yeah.
I love that idea, but
Mhm,
I've never been able to do that. I don't know. I think we always
mhm,
just steer into a different path and we just kind of organically go with it. So
mhm.
I think if you had something that was like that, the rose and the thorn, and it's almost like I feel like that scripted version.
Yeah.
What is it in somebody in that mom's or that person's spirit that is needing or heart is needing it to go a certain direction? Is there a
Mhm.
control piece? Is there a trying to check the box piece? Is so that's where I would go with that is I'd be looking at what is it that is in my what is the need that I'm trying to fill in this? Is
Yes.
there something that I am missing in my life? Is there something that maybe from my childhood I didn't have those
Right.
pieces in our dinner? Our dinner was a little bit more business-like. My mom and dad talked about the day to day, like, okay, tomorrow I need you to pick up so and so from soccer. Tomorrow we have this play we need to make at 3:30. And I really wanted connection and I missed that. So now I'm like trying to force connection, but I want it to look like the connection that I have in mind. Whereas
Yes.
connection sounds like it's taking place and it's
Yes.
all in its own organic form.
Right.
And maybe that doesn't match exactly what you're visualizing in your place.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, and that's the thing. It's like I catch myself, so it's like I know that it's happening because I can feel the feeling of in my body of like wanting to manage it. And it's funny because this is the only place it shows up in my day with my kids. It's just like the dinner table. So it sounds like I do need to continue to do some work on that. And sometimes I have been noticing like checking those logistics boxes, like, okay, what's the game plan for this week or tomorrow? When really I don't want to have that conversation right now. I just want to like be together and just have a moment. And so then it's like and so that's when I just like take that breath. I sit back, I just allow it to happen. So yes, yes. So that's where it's I guess I've still got some work to do. And so how else can you kind of explain or share to moms who maybe don't have it in the dinner timetable? Like where else do you see it showing up?
Sure. So, one example would be a real example for us in our house recently was we were all getting over colds. And so, my tolerance level and my capacities bucket was not as open to the demands in our house. So, my capacity, I love to think of our capacities bucket we each have as a parent and how much we can pour our demands into our bucket. So, when we're sick, our capacities bucket is going to be much fuller. When we're
Mhm.
caregiving and our kids have been sick, our capacities bucket is going to be very full. It's not going to have as much room, right?
Right.
So when and then think of your kids also have the same thing. So especially with highly sensitive kids or neurodiverse kids, their capacities bucket can fill up very quickly without you even understanding why it's full. So checking
Mhm.
in with those kiddos to see, especially when we're sick. So an example I love to share is uh, I was recently going to brush my daughter's teeth and she was like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of something, mom. I don't want to do it right now." And she was doing something and I was like, "Oh, mom has told you I've gave you a 5-minute warning, a 2-minute warning, 1 minute. Like we need to go." And I'm starting to get frustrated because it's going to push us back in time. She's not going to get as much sleep. She's going to get grumpy because she's getting over a cold. All of these things, right? These fear things that are coming up in my mind. It's like, okay, we need to go. So then I'm getting more frustrated. She's feeling that frustration. She's the
Mhm.
mirror of my feelings and my energy, my emotions I'm putting out. She starts to get frustrated back at me. My
Mhm.
husband, who has been at work and hasn't been with the sick kids all day, comes in and he's in a grounded, calm version, right? He's not feeling
Mhm.
those frustrations. He's just been washing dishes or something. He comes in, he can sit with her and connect with her and he's like, "Okay, mom, go ahead and take over the dishes if you want. Like, I got this." And he's coming in from a grounded place. She's reflecting his loving connection, so she
Yeah.
calms down very quickly. And I can go calm down while I'm washing the dishes and meditate. I love to do active meditation, so I'm washing the dishes, I'm thinking about the foam as I'm washing the dishes. I have my
Mm.
earbuds in so I can't hear the conversation and I can just maybe listen to some calming music. I'm grounding myself, I'm reconnecting, and I'm calming my system down because maybe eventually my husband's in a good place right now, but he's getting over his cold too. Maybe we're going to have to switch back. But
Mhm.
that's something to think about, is where are we in our capacities and demands journey, because they're reflecting back exactly as we are and they have their capacities bucket too. I wanted to reflect back on your example with the table. I was thinking, if you're still feeling that energy bubbling up in your heart,
Mhm.
that's something that you could reflect on during meditation, journal for yourself, all of these
Mhm.
pieces. As I don't know if I laid the groundwork as much for that, but
Yeah.
yes. And with my example, if I'm feeling every night I'm feeling frustrated because she's not going to brush her teeth,
Mhm.
then I look back at that control. What happened in my childhood where I needed to control something? Was there something specifically with teeth brushing? Was there something specifically with me not being heard? My child's not
Mhm.
hearing me. She's not listening. Do I
Yeah.
have something from my childhood where I wasn't heard, where I was ignored? Maybe that's coming up in this fear based or coming up in this explosion feeling that I'm having. So it's
Yes.
two different
Yes.
topics
Well, no, I
combined.
love it because you're already bridging into like my next question. So it's fantastic. Yeah. So tell us more about the tools that you use. Like I love mindfulness based tools, meditation.
Mhm.
Like tell
Yeah.
us about how you use them.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I've heard but self care is a hot topic in social media, and I'm not really sure why it's a hot topic. I don't. But self care is something that I feel like is so important, especially if you have highly sensitive kids, neurodiverse kids,
Mhm.
gifted and talented kids. I think I've heard gifted and distracted as a description lately for some of these really
Uh-huh.
smart kiddos.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it can be even more draining for us. So self care is something that has been such a big one. And my husband and I, when we first had kids, we would always think the whole family has to be together every single weekend, the whole
Mm.
weekend. We have to be together, connecting and sharing. No, no, no. Mom needs a moment to recharge. Dad needs a moment, or whoever the partner is needs a moment to recharge. So
Yeah.
my husband and I, a long time ago, we started doing swap times where we would each have 1 to 2 hours on the weekend, and then the other person would have the kiddos, where
Yeah.
we could do something that we were actively present and conscious in. So,
Mhm.
for example, if you go for a run and you're thinking about, oh, I have this to get done, I have that to get done, I got to do that. You're going through your list of things you need to do that day. That doesn't count as your self care. Your self care
Mhm.
needs to be something that you are consciously engaged in. You need to be recharging yourself. You need to be releasing some of those demands in your capacity bucket. You need to be connecting with yourself. And so there's a lot of things that I love to do. I think guided meditations or meditations are great. I studied Reiki. That was really powerful for me. So that was a healing journey that I went through as a parent and a human. Um, and Qigong is something that I love to mention. It's like active meditation is kind of
Mm.
how it, with a little bit of energy work. I
Yeah.
do a group version of that. And so finding those things that you can do to recharge yourself as a mom is so important. And then also helping your partner to do that as well.
Oh, wow, I love that, and my wish is that the dads out there would embrace that for the moms, because I think a lot of times, not to get into the roles in the conversation right now, but, like, a lot of times they don't think of that. They think, well, this is the mom's job to do all these things. The one thing that stood out for me in what you're saying is, so I just finished a course called Consciously Digital. And so I'm now a Consciously Digital certified coach. And that just adds on to all the stuff that I already have. But I wanted to start incorporating that in because the technology use is such a big issue with my clients and such a hot topic in the schools. And so the thing I learned in there, and I already had a background in neuroscience, but I loved what I learned in there, which is about the part of the brain that's called the default mode network. And that is just like that rest and relax. It's kind of like in the parasympathetic state, when we're calm and relaxed. But that's essential that most of us aren't getting enough of these days. And so that is what allows our brain to do what's called slow thinking. And that's where our brains can be creative. We can do long-term goal setting. We can really like create visions in our head. It's just a state of relaxation where you allow your brain to just literally kind of go into default mode. Like if you have nothing to do and no phone and no chores and you're just sitting there, and so that's I think the kind of first stage of meditation where it's just starting to like slow those brain waves down. And I just like bringing that to people's awareness because so many moms I know are so stressed out and they're not allowing themselves those breaks. And even, all the moms I know, which are moms of teenagers, um, just as much, right? There's just as much running around and activity going on. And so, like, just forcing yourself to do these breaks so that you can activate your slow thinking. And it's amazing how it doesn't really even take that long. Ideally, you give yourself a longer time. They say the more stressed out you are, the more time you need to relax. So, yeah, I just love hearing about that because I think that's something that we're overlooking a lot of. And so many people use their phones to relax. They just like plop on the couch and start scrolling on social media. And they think that that's chill time when honestly, it's actually neurologically not. It doesn't count. And so just to remove that from people's like definition of self-care or relaxation, because that's not part of the equation.
Yeah, I did not mention anything on devices. I feel like, it's really interesting. I did some studies, or I was reading some studies for speech therapy and working on that. And it said the maximum amount of time that kids, this was younger kids, should be on any type of technology is 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you think about it, like if they're on technology at school, taking
Mhm.
standardized testing on a computer, my
Yeah.
kids are definitely going to be outside when they get home. We're not going to be on a device at that time. But yes, that the dopamine hits and all of those pieces, if
Mhm.
you're scrolling, that's not going to be re-energizing for you at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's kind of like round out the conversation with like how this our energy as parents does reflect back to our kids. You mentioned that earlier with like this your speech therapy patients and how that was happening. But I too see that a lot in like parents with teenagers where it's like the moms that are coming to me saying, oh my gosh, my daughter talks back to me and she's so disrespectful, or my kid's this and my kid's that. And you can just tell their energy. I already know what's happening. Like literally within seconds, you can tell because the energy they bring to talk about it, I can tell that's the energy they're using on their teenager, and so therefore their teenager is like literally it's like the mirror opposite where it's like that it's the polarization, but it's pushing back in the equal force, whatever Newton's law is. But it's going this way. It's not going this way. It's going, the energy is going this way. And so talk to us about that, like your experience of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I feel like when we're talking about meditation, that's such a powerful piece to be thinking about because when we're meditating, I love to go into a meditation with an idea of what I want to work on in that meditate, an intention of why do I feel like I have to control this right now? Why do I feel like I want to erupt when they push back?
Mhm.
It's really interesting because I feel like the toothbrushing scenario is so similar to what you're describing with the teenagers
Mhm.
talking back. Because my
Mhm.
7-year-old will talk back with, I don't want to do it right now. I'm doing this, right? When I need
Mhm.
you to. So it's a really similar situation. And then there's that tuning in of what if I gave them options? What if I gave them options within what I can handle as a parent? What if
Mhm.
I let them have a little bit more control, right? Because why do I have to be in control? Why do I have to? What in me says that I know exactly what is always better for my teenager than themselves?
Mhm. Oh,
I
100%. That's it. You nailed it on the head.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, it goes back to the inner child piece again. What
Yeah.
is it that I didn't get to control as a kid? Maybe as a teenager, I didn't get to control it. I had to be in the box of what my parents wanted me to be, good grades, going to the exact academics, the exact extracurriculars, the pressures of trying to get into the perfect college because I had to have the perfect profession. All of these things that we're trying to now force on them that were forced on us. Why are we repeating the cycle when we can change it?
Mhm.
Why why go through that again? So our teenagers are going to go through that. Is like it's just going to keep going unless we stop it and say what in me is lacking, what in me needs to be worked on. These challenges are opportunities for healing, growing, and learning. And
Yes.
our kids are going to be our biggest teachers in it.
Oh,
And it's
yes.
going to get louder until we work on it.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Yes. I completely agree. And I wanna add one more onto that, which is, a lot of what I do is kind of like identity work as moms, and it sounds like we just have this great, synergy here, and so it's like, what is it about me as a mom that this needs to happen, but not from the control piece, but more the idea of like self-worth, like I'm a good mom if my kid does A, B, and C, right? And so they put these conditions on it, like what it means, and part of it is their own opinion of themselves, but then also worrying about other people's opinions, whether it's their spouse or their in-laws or friends. Like I want to appear like I have it all together and I'm amazing mom. So therefore, my child needs to get this SAT score, be on this team, and get admitted into this college so that I can feel proud and brag about my child. When really, it's not actually about like it, yes, is there good intention in built in there? Yes, right. But it's really more so that I can feel good about who I am as a mom instead of like what might really actually be best for my child.
I have such a good example of that. So, when we're looking at trying to help ourselves with some of these moments of eruption or conflict in our houses, let's look for the patterns. Let's look for When do we see it happening? And then we need to try to find the root. So, an example, and I have a younger kiddo example because that's where I'm at right now, but I feel like it relates to what you're talking about. Um, my son would always, because I'm in Colorado, my son would always want to be wearing shorts in 35-degree weather. And so it was this battle before school of put on the pants. No, I'm wearing the shorts, put on the pants. And we would have this battle. So I was like, just let him wear the shorts and put the pants in the backpack. But then I
Mhm.
had to realize, what is the reason that you can't let him do it? It isn't because I'm worried about him getting cold. It's because when I walk him to the door, he was younger at the time. When I would walk him to the door, other parents would always say, wow, he's really tough to be out here in shorts in 35-degree weather. Oh, look at him. He's always in shorts. Look at this guy. And all these comments that would come. And it didn't just end there because I would take those comments home with me. They would go in my backpack, my invisible backpack, and I'd be hearing them as I walked home. And then you start to add on to that conversation yourself, right?
Yeah.
Our little head inside of us. You're a bad mom. How did you let your kid go to school not wearing shorts? Ooh, am I going to get in trouble for this? What is the coldest temperature you could wear shorts in? Am I going to get actual trouble? It's like all of these pieces that fill in, right? When we need to look at, why am I not okay with somebody saying that to me? Why do
Mhm.
I care what other people are saying? We've been conditioned to think that them approving of our parenting choices is what
Mhm.
matters. Why does it
Yeah.
matter? Each kid is different. And yes, my kid runs very hot. Red cheeks in the summer, like, Mama, he needs sunscreen. He has sunscreen on. He's hot. Okay.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that's such a classic story with, because that's such a common universal thing with kids wanting to wear the shorts yeah, even adults do that because I lived in Boston for 9 years and, yeah, even the men who worked in my company would come in
All
wearing
the
shorts.
men.
What are they doing? They're just trying to be these tough guys.
Yes. But
I love
maybe
it.
that's what's comfortable to them, right? So
Like, maybe
let's let them be whatever they want to be. Let's let
they're
them wear mismatched clothing when I mean we do it with our preschoolers. We let them go to school wearing the fluffy dress with the crazy rain boots and whatnot. But then when they're older, it's like this, ooh, I have to mold them into what society believes that they have to be wearing.
yes,
Why? Why
yeah.
can't we let the 10-year-old go? Another example, my son used to be like, I'm good at everything, and just I'm really good at basketball, and that wasn't maybe his forte. I'm really good at soccer. I'm the smartest kid, and he was all of this. And my husband would say, do we tell him like he's not the best at ever? But hun, I'm worried he's getting real. Or he would say to me like, I'm worried he's getting really big headed, and I was like, I like this confidence and this empowerment because when he goes out into the world, it's
Mhm.
going to tell him, give him the restrictions and the boundaries of where his actual physical abilities are. So let's continue to empower this and foster this as long as we can right now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. In fact, I think like that's the perfect kind of feels like happy ending to our conversation. So, how can people find you going forward? And
Yeah.
tell us the name of your podcast again so people can listen.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're Heart to Heart Parents is the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And then you can find us on Facebook and Instagram with the same username. And then hearttoheartlife.com is our website, which has all the links for everything. Thanks so much for having me. It was lovely.
Great. Yes, Keri, thank you. Yes, I enjoyed our conversation. It was fantastic. All right.